All right, we're recording.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Vera, for the introduction. I'm actually gonna start with Omkar to introduce himself since you're unmuted.
Hello everyone. I'm Omkar Supekar. I started my grad program in mechanical engineering back in 2014. I graduated.
Oh, Omkar, sorry you.
Did everyone hear the first half of my introduction? All right. Uh, but yeah, I graduated 2019. Um, I just have to say I had such a good time being in CU, being at CU, working with the people I work with. So I found a postdoc in my collaborators lab. I was a postdoc for 3 years in the Department of Electrical Engineering, working mostly on optics. And then about a year and some change ago, I moved here to upstate New York as a senior development scientist for Corning Incorporated.
Awesome. Thank you. Adrian, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian Scott, and I started my PhD at CU Boulder in 2016 and then graduated in 2022. And I'd have to agree with Omkar. I had a really great experience at CU. And I then pursued a postdoc at Washington University in St. Louis. And now my work focuses on modeling and understanding mechanical environment in pregnancy. And in the future, I hope to apply for positions in academia.
Sweet. Eric?
Hey everybody, my name is Eric Acom. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Artemis Robotics. Started at CU Boulder in 2015 in mechanical engineering and graduated in 2020, kind of in the middle of COVID. So it was interesting to defend during that time. But yeah, I also had an amazing time at CU Boulder. Really enjoyed the research I was working on. We were working in the field of soft robotics, developing new types of soft actuators for artificial muscles, and ended up starting a company with my lab mates and with our advisor, and still am located in Boulder, just a short drive from campus. And we still have several kind of collaborations going on with people back at CU Boulder.
Sweet. And then Rosa?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rosa Morales. I was at CU from 2017 to 2022. So I was I specialized in material science and specifically like non-destructive evaluation. So after defending last summer, I joined Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which is located in Livermore, California, as a postdoc, which is the position I'm in now. So doing science for our nation.
Sweet. So we have a very wide spread of people here. Like Vera, I've had the pleasure of working with all of these people while they were here. So it's great. It's nice to see you all again. So I want to start with a general question. How do you think your experience in mechanical engineering and specifically the PhD program at CU Boulder, how do you think that's influenced your career trajectory? And I'm going to start with Rosa since you're the last one to speak.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, it's defined my career trajectory for sure. I always tell people pursuing a PhD is both the hardest and the best thing I've ever done. Without the PhD, I would not be on the trajectory that I am now, which is to become, so right now I'm a postdoc, and usually that's the entry level position at a national laboratory, and then you get converted to staff scientist. And so you could think of a staff scientist position being like a tenure position. So for those of you who are interested in academia, once you get tenure at a university, that's like your permanent home, right? And so it's similar at a national laboratory. And for me, the trajectory I'm on right now is the best one I could have imagined. I like to tell people that a national lab is like the perfect synergistic like medium between academia and industry. So my job is to be a researcher, but I have money to be a researcher, right? So I don't have to submit. I do submit some internal grants for like pursuing projects that I'm interested in, and that I see that there's a need for, but I don't have to do as much of the fundraising as you would do in academia. Of course, I don't have like teaching responsibilities or like official mentorship responsibilities, which is something that I do think I would have liked in academia. But I'm finding ways around that with like hiring my own interns and kind of, you know, building for myself that opportunity to mentor younger scientists. So yeah, so for me, pursuing a PhD has very much opened up all the doors for me to pursue exactly what I want.
What about Eric, since that's kind of different from what Rosa's doing?
Yeah, I definitely too will echo what Rosa said about, you know, PhD opens up a lot of different opportunities, and I think that was a big motivation for me to go to grad school and pursue a PhD. Was I worked in industry with a bachelor's for several years, actually in upstate New York, kind of near where Omkar is now, and just realized, yeah, there'd be a lot more opportunities if I went back into the PhD. And, you know, from this panel, you see people working in a lot of different areas, doing a lot of different things. So it definitely opens up a lot of opportunities. And I think, yeah, getting a PhD though is very challenging. And you know, the career path after that can also comes with challenges too. So for me, the PhD definitely defined my career path. There was quite a bit of overlap too between kind of finishing up my PhD and starting this company, Artemis Robotics. We started the company in 2018 and worked on it part-time while we were finishing up our PhDs. So yeah, it was kind of a smooth transition to the company. And CU Boulder has a lot of resources to support graduate students who want to, you know, go forward with that path. So yeah, I mean, felt like there was a lot of support along the way. Boulder is a great ecosystem if you're interested in doing a startup. And yeah, there's still, you know, a lot of kind of, yeah, submitting grants in my role now, a lot of submitting grants, trying to get money through SBIR, STTR programs, also pitching to people to raise money. But at the same time, we're trying to kind of grow revenue. And yeah, and in this role too, you know, as a PhD student, I did have the chance to mentor undergraduates. And I think that's a great, I recommend that for anybody that's going to do a PhD. It's good to get that experience. I think in most roles, you're going to end up managing people in some way, or so the more practice you can get with that while you're doing your PhD, the better. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian.
So I have to agree with everyone else. My experience at CU Boulder definitely sort of defined my career path right now. So I forgot to mention in my introduction that I worked with Dr. Corey New in my PhD. And so I think sort of two experiences or two overarching experiences really have defined my career trajectory. So the research alone, so working with Corey and getting experience doing research and learning that I loved understanding how cells respond to the external mechanical environment, which is a very maybe niche thing to love, but it was really, I really enjoyed the research. And so that's kind of my one thing that has driven me forward to continue to pursue research in the future. And then as well as sort of having the opportunity to interact with a lot of different professors at CU and almost be treated as like there's just so much respect for the graduate students and so much sort of autonomy and people really respect and I guess like are okay giving responsibilities to grad students is what I'm trying to say. And I think so I had the opportunity to serve on the grad committee with Omkar, and was able to be the lead TA for the department for a few years. And both of these sort of positions really gave me an insight into what it's like to be a professor at CU. And I think sort of this experience, as well as the research alone, sort of has given me this idea that I think I could really fit well into an academic position. And it's something that I want to pursue. So I think those are both of the things that have changed my career.
Thanks. Omkar?
Yeah. So I'll give a very personal perspective, like personal experience, and like I'll share some stories about like what my path through CU has been. So I was an international student admit. I came to CU with the sole idea of doing really well and learning as much as possible. So much so that I didn't even know that there were mountains in Colorado. So it was a pleasant surprise for me when I actually landed in the Denver airport, but there's like so much beauty around, and like the mountains were just breathtaking. Throughout my grad program, it's not just like the skills that I gained as a researcher, but I made really long-lasting connections through peers, through grad students, through undergrads that worked in our lab, through professors that we collaborated with. So besides the hard skills, quote unquote, like I got an opportunity to develop a lot of my soft skills as well, like, and learn how to look at my career not just as a linear path where it's step 1, step 2, step 3, whereas like being more comfortable with some flexibility and being open to new challenges. I worked in Victor Bright's group, Professor Bright's group. The projects that I had to work on, I got to work on, were fairly multidisciplinary in nature. So as a mechanical engineer, like at Corning, when people ask me like, what is my specialty? I'm like, I'm a mechanical engineer who does mostly optics, but I do have a very strong background in mechanical engineering as well. So like the opportunity to like learn new things, expand horizons was, I would say, very unique to my grad experience at CU Boulder. And it's hard for me to imagine if I would have gotten a similar experience any other place, not just CU Boulder, but like CU Boulder mechanical engineering.
So also, we have a list of questions, and we can go through them. But if you have any questions of your own, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. Just let us know, because we'd love to hear what you all are curious about, especially with this very diverse group of panelists from different fields going into different post grad school careers. So please let us know. Don't feel shy to ask questions. But going off of Omkar's last point on this interdisciplinary background and saying, okay, I'm a mechanical engineer, but I do completely different stuff from what you would expect a mechanical engineer to do. I just wanted to get your opinion, all of your opinions on in what ways have you applied your mechanical engineering knowledge to these interdisciplinary projects and collaborative roles that you've had both as a PhD student and in your current roles? And whoever wants to answer that, feel free to pop in.
I can start this. So not to give you details or like bore you with details about what my dissertation was, but in Victor's group, I worked on optical MEMS devices. So we were working on really small devices that could be used in high resolution microscopes, which for me meant like learning what the end use application is. So we collaborated heavily with the medical school, design a lot of high resolution nonlinear optics based microscopes. So got me an opportunity to learn different optical phenomena. As a postdoc, I transitioned more into the optics and lasers aspects of these applications. and all of them have been very applicable in a research environment as well as an R&D environment here in Corning. So like Corning is a glass company, but we often forget there's a lot of optics or light matter interaction when it comes to us perceiving glass. So just an example, there's a lot of research that goes into designing, say, the perfect glass for your mobile phone covers. There are a lot of considerations. So like all of those tiny little things that I picked up through grad school and postdoc on how to think about problems in a critical and analytical way. And just the basic knowledge base that I gained has been not just been helpful as a researcher in an academic setting, but it's translating pretty well in an industry setting as well.
Awesome.
I'll quickly piggyback off of what Omkar said. The way that I like to think about it is pursuing whatever discipline you're going to pursue gives you a toolbox, right? So pursuing mechanical engineering gave me a really strong toolbox in, for me, like mechanics, right? And material science. And so, but more so than the toolbox, I think what you gain in a PhD is how to think and how to formulate your thoughts. And they're both super important, right? Like if with the PhD, you learn how to think and how to formulate your thoughts and how to approach a problem, that you need that toolbox to then go and solve the problem. I think that itself is how, like, it's best to think about pursuing a PhD. It is by no means an easy task or a quick task. There will be failure, right? There will be experiments that don't work. There will be tests that you don't do too hot on, but it's more about thinking about, okay, like the minutia doesn't necessarily matter. It's more about like the toolbox that I'm building, right? If I don't remember that equation, so what? I know where to find it, right? So it's the toolbox and how, instead of like when an experiment doesn't work, it's like, okay, well, how could I have formulated that experiment a little bit different? So I think that's what I gained from the PhD is, being able, which is like very hard to do, but very important to do, is be able to step back and not hyper focus on the tiny details of why something didn't go the way you expected it to, but learning from that and taking a step back and being able to see the bigger picture of how to then move forward in solving the problem you're looking to solve.
Which is like not just like, just to add to that, like these are good life skills as well. Like things don't work out the way you want, so like it's preparing you for life, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the hardest skills learning from grad school is how to not take every little mistake as a personal attack. Eric, Adrian, do you have anything to add to that? If not, I have another question for both of you.
I'll just say also that that having this toolbox, like you really can notice the difference. Like I think that now starting a postdoc, it's kind of like starting a new PhD, but it's so much faster. Like you know what you're doing, like it's kind of weird to think back as first year grad student me approaching problems, and I felt like everything was going so slowly. And things do go slowly still, but it's incredible how much you do learn from your PhD to be able to then approach a new research project. And you're like, wow, I feel much more equipped to be able to approach all these problems and get this work done more efficiently, know when to stop when there's something that's not going right, and then know when to keep going when you have to like work through a specific problem. So just kind of echoing that in reality, we all studied mechanical engineering, but I think we came out with like more of an important skill set to be able to learn.
The only thing I would add to that, is I think definitely my work was mostly experimental. So we were making these new type of actuators. So the background I had in mechanical engineering was really valuable for, you know, informing like, yeah, how I approach, you know, development of this new technology, and then even just like how to run experiments and different test setups. But that said, like there was still, yeah, I learned so much about material science, electrical engineering, and all these other fields throughout the process. And I really too want to highlight what Omkar said. Like this is, you're learning good life skills doing a PhD. You're gonna go, you know, things are not gonna work, and you're gonna have to learn how to deal with those challenges. One thing our advisor used to say was that doing a PhD, like to be successful, you have to have a high tolerance for frustration. Which, so you know, that's gonna happen. You're gonna be frustrated and feel like there's no path forward, and not know why things are yeah, not be clear on why things aren't working. So yeah, always good to take a step back, and yeah, you're learning how to solve problems, hard problems that people have never done before, which is really exciting, but also very challenging.
Sweet. Any last comments? We have a question in the chat that I can ask you all. Off the top of my head, I can't remember out of the four of you who've done this, but do any of you recommend doing a co-op or an internship during your PhD program?
Wani, did you do an internship program?
I did. I was gonna say I'll jump in if no one has any other comments. But yeah, Rosa, if you want to speak first, and then I can go.
I'll go quickly. I know that yours was probably more related maybe to your actual PhD, but I did do an internship my first summer of the PhD program, and I highly recommend it. If you are still on the fence about like what trajectory to pursue. So for me, I had internship experience from undergrad with the national lab system. So I thought that's what I wanted, right? I was like, this is awesome. But I just didn't want to then pursue, you know, a 5-year degree without being completely certain, because I had never had an industry experience. So I took my first summer at CU to intern with Ball Aerospace, which is right in Boulder, which is awesome. It's an incredible company, highly recommend. And the internship was awesome. I had a great time, but I feel like, you know, they do incredible work, but I guess a few months into my internship, where like, I like was very capable at my job. And I was like, well, I don't want my whole career to me be able to figure out what my job is going to be in a few months. Like I like to be challenged. I like to like, you know, bang my head against the wall and be like, I don't know what to do next. Okay, what do I try? So for me, it like verified or validated that I should pursue a PhD and that a research career was more up my alley. So that, while it was a great summer, it was a great experience. It was more than anything very good to know that's not what I wanted for myself.
Any other comments?
I'll just say that I wish I did one. But then I think, Bonnie, you should share your experience.
Yeah, so I worked, I think a year before I defended. I did an internship with Meta for 8 months, I believe. And it started out, it was supposed to be 5 months. And then we ended up doing a project from start to finish, and we were almost done. And we just had the last chunk of this paper to complete. And I ended up being really fortunate in that the work that I did with Meta also fed into my dissertation work. So I actually used it for a portion of my thesis, which was great. And they also allowed me to present my work at a conference. So this was my first conference, because a good chunk of my PhD was during COVID. I wasn't able to go to any physical conferences until this one. And so it was a great experience. I was able to go to Singapore on their dime, and I was there for a whole week. I could present on my work. And it felt very much like I think a good motivation for me to finish, because at that time I was 4 years in, I was feeling very jaded, and you will all get there at some point. I'm sure everyone in this panel can attest to that. And this was kind of this new spark that I needed to feel excited and motivated to finish the rest of my work. And I think on the flip side of what Rosa was saying, when I worked with these guys, I figured out that this was definitely something that I wanted to do post graduation. Was as I'm going into a postdoc, after the postdoc, I do want to trend more towards the industry side than academic side, and this was definitely something that made me realize that that was the right decision for myself.
I'll just add one quick comment. So as an I wish I had even thought about doing an internship or co-op, but there are certain things you have to be considerate as an international student. I saw there was like a specific question on international students, but like I just wanted, without going into details, because I don't think I'm equipped to give advice on how to do it as an international students. There are ways you can navigate and get an internship during summers. Uh, it's just one additional step in figuring out what your visa will allow you to do and like what kind of paperwork you need to file.
Yeah, and what Vera just posted in the chat too is that the department does have internships for credit options. And so this would be helpful for international students. So another question from the chat is, what is a common challenge for CU students as a whole, specifically for international students? And sorry, I'm totally reading this wrong. Um, what is a common challenge for all of you that you had as a CU student, and then Omkar specifically as an international student? Yeah.
I can quickly give my perspective.
Yeah.
Challenge as an international student, I can't really say. It was the CU Boulder ME community is very inclusive. Like I felt like I was home. However, it is a culture shock, so you have to take it from that perspective. Like as I said in my like second question, the first question that I answered, like I came to CU with being the best grad student ever, but then realized that how naive and stupid that thought was. So that was the big challenge, where like learning how to look at life as a whole and understanding that it's not just about being the best student, but being a good person and like developing as a person throughout your journey. I did the first few months were really good, and then it hit me that I have to do my own dishes, my own laundry, and everything. So that of things we talk about challenges, that was probably my biggest challenge, but it was fairly straightforward.
I'll add to that. Like Omkar mentioned, there's a big culture shock when coming to CU Boulder. For me, it wasn't necessarily in the like academics, but more in the population. So Boulder is a very, very homogeneously white community. And for me, coming from California, where it is extremely diverse, that was a huge culture shock. And that was the most difficult part for me. I think I did struggle for a while to find community within the department. And I do think that like COVID didn't help, right? So I think had COVID not been a factor, I would have met Vani day one, right? Instead of like year 3. So yes, I do think that the university and the department has diversity, right? We have a lot of international folk, but Boulder, like city, the community outside of the university is very, very homogeneously white. So that to me was very, very different, and actually like very significant. Like it played a big role into my overall well-being. A therapy. CU Boulder has an incredible therapy program. I do recommend you all take care of your mental health. As grad students or as PhD students, insurance is covered. So you do have access to free therapy sessions. And for me, therapy was like huge in getting me through and helping me cope with this new community that I very visibly didn't feel like I belonged in. Yeah, but I think, now that COVID hopefully is not coming back, well, it's still around, but the world is more open now. Hopefully that won't be the case for a lot of you, but do seek out resources, because that is one thing that CU has incredible resources. Right, whether it's mental health or there's like a food bank, there's like a lot of resources. So that's something that I definitely took advantage of.
I guess, yeah, one thing I'll add, the challenge for me was, also like a personal one. I had, been working in industry for a few years. And so, I was used to sort of being out of, living with roommates and everything. And partway through grad school, my wife and I had a kid. And so for us, like living in Boulder was not really practical, because cost of living is high there if you're not going to have a bunch of roommates. So a challenge for us was finding affordable housing, and we lived actually in Longmont. And the nice thing about that is there are pretty good bus systems around the Boulder area. So that's something, if you're thinking about moving here and worried about that, consider alternatives like living in Longmont, Lafayette, Louisville. I mean, it's a little inconvenient. You're further, you have a commute, obviously, but with a free bus pass, you can read papers on your way on your commute and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how that was the upside for me with having that commute, though it did kind of present some challenges for being on campus, especially late nights at the lab.
Adrian, any last comments?
Thinking about like a common challenge that everyone kind of faces, I think about first year a lot, for like first year in graduate school, mostly because of all the challenges that everyone's mentioning, but the fact that there is a big workload when you come in. You're trying to figure out your research lab. You most likely will have a TA position. It may not be directly what you know about. You might have to learn the information along the way. And at the same time, you'll also have your own classes, and that those classes might be new to you. So the amount of like the workload first year is tough, along with the fact that you might be dealing with figuring out new cultures, new friends, just figuring out your space and your community, knowing where to go to get food and everything else. So it's a very stressful time, I think, for everyone. I don't know if everyone can agree, but I did notice that a lot, that the first year is tough. And then later on, your PhD, there's other challenges, but they're a different type of challenge, I think. So that to me stuck out as like a common thing that maybe other people might have experienced as well.
So we're getting a lot more questions in the chat. So I'll ask two people, if you don't mind weighing in on if you think Boulder is a good area for networking within your field outside of the university. How do you meet different professionals within the industry, within Boulder, during conferences, mixers, stuff like that?
I can at least speak to optics. There's a Colorado Photonics Industry Association that holds a meeting at CU every year, and then there's a meeting offsite at a conference or center or something like that. CPI has a student chapter. Optical Society of America and SPIE have a student chapter at CU, especially in the engineering center. So you can network through there. You can start volunteering for these associations. So the quote unquote informal job fairs are a good place to network.
Also, one thing just from what Rosa was saying about like finding groups of diversity within Boulder, I'd say there's a lot of affinity groups in Boulder that are coming up, and a lot of them that are specifically focused around like women in STEM, people of color in STEM, society of like Hispanic engineers. And so there's a lot of different groups that you could go through those affinity groups and meet people that you can identify with that are also in engineering, in robotics, in STEM. I say robotics because I was in robotics, but those are the ones that I know of. Any other comments? If not, we can go to a next question.
Yeah, I would just say kind of like for robotics, there's, I think, a lot of activity in Boulder and then in the Denver area too. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities to network with people that are working in industry. I think there are several like meetup groups that happen regularly, like Boulders for Robotics, I think is one of them. So there's a lot of good opportunities to meet up with people that are, you know, working in industry or maybe even doing research. And yeah, definitely a good area for like startups, of course, that kind of trends more towards software startups, but there's a decent amount of, yeah, like mechanical engineering based startups in the area.
I'll also add that I think networking within your department is actually really valuable. And so getting to know the professors in your area was for me very easy at CU, mostly because they tried to group a lot of the labs that have similar disciplines in the same areas. And so, for instance, the biomedical engineering labs are kind of all grouped together, sort of, and then the robotics labs are also somewhat in the same area. And this is really beneficial for networking and like getting to know your peers, but also the professors that lead these groups. And I think that has really been valuable for me. I don't think I would have gotten this postdoc position without the help of Dr. Ginger Ferguson, and she's not my PI, but it really does help to get to know the other professors in the department, and it's very easy and natural to do that, I think.
Rosa, any last comments? If not, you can start off with the next question. Oh, sorry.
No, we're good. Yeah.
So are there opportunities for PhD students to, actually, I'm not sure who will be able to answer this, but are there opportunities for PhD students to rotate in other laboratories and collaborate with other multiple disciplinary projects along the lines of their thesis research?
I know they do that, right? So Adrian maybe will know a little bit more about this.
I don't know if my information will be up to date, but I will say if you have an interest in biology, I'll do a plug for the IQ biology program because they do rotations, and they're an incredible program on campus that connects you with professors all around the campus. So you really have an interdisciplinary focus. I feel like Bonnie and Vera, you might have more up-to-date information on whether or not you can do rotations.
Yeah, I can jump in. That's not really part of how our program works, but within the first year, we have seen students, I wouldn't call it a rotation. They might try out a lab and maybe it's not exactly the research they're interested in, or they think they love something, then they learn about something else. And so they might transition and work in another lab. We recommend doing that within the first year. So that happens more organically, but it's not something that we build into our program. And an academic advisor can help you walk through that and how to do that. And faculty generally are happy if you do that because they'd rather have students who want to be in their labs and want to be doing their research. So they understand that you might be moving around a bit. So it doesn't happen all the time, but every year there's a handful of students who end up doing this.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us on this panel know students that have transferred labs or have been doing interdisciplinary work and then ended up getting co-advised by other advisors and kind of working more with that co-advisor. And so there's a lot of different options for as you are on this PhD track. It's a long time, it's 5 years. You get to know other professors, what other students are doing and whatnot. Okay, Rosa, I'll start with you on this one. Given what you know now, is there something you wish you did differently during your PhD studies?
I think back to something Eric, I think, mentioned earlier. I wish I would have mentored more undergrad students. That's something that I didn't do, but I'm now pursuing right as a postdoc, looking to hire an intern this summer. I just think, and I think somebody asked about like leadership, right? Towards, I was reading the questions. So I think maybe besides Eric or Omkar, but I think Adrian and I are pretty fresh out of the PhD, so we haven't quite like officially like climbed the leadership ladder. But that's something I'm quickly starting to realize that I've done a lot of mentorship, but how you do technical mentorship can be quite different, right? Because everybody has different, especially in like such a technical field as the ones we're in, everybody has different career goals for themselves. So my career goals are probably not everybody else's. And so learning how to lead somebody technically, but also like help them advance in their career goals, I think is very nuanced. And so I wish I would have maybe mentored more students during, like technically mentored, besides like the like soft skill mentoring to kind of start to practice some of that.
I actually think if my perspective on this is I'm looking at my life right now, I'm pretty happy, and that's because how things have turned out in the past. I credit a lot of me being here to my experience in grad school and postdoc. So like, I wouldn't change a thing. But that's just my perspective. Sorry.
I will say that I've probably made a ton of mistakes in grad school. But I don't like, I have to be a little bit more like optimistic about them, because I think because I made the mistakes, I learned from them. And so I do things differently now, and maybe I wouldn't have known to do things differently. Maybe I'd be still making those mistakes if I hadn't made them then. So I can't think of anything specific that I would do things differently.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of is maybe kind of a small thing, but just I know some people, when I was, picking classes to take, I was focusing mostly on like mechanical engineering classes, but some people ended up kind of taking classes in other disciplines, and they learned some like valuable skills that really helped their research. And I think, in hindsight, I might have, maybe there's some classes I wish I had taken. And because it always feels like there's more and more to learn, and you're always really busy, but grad school is a great time to try to learn new things, take new classes, kind of expand your knowledge. But yeah, it is really easy though to look back and say, oh, I should have done this or that. I mean, things have worked out the way they have for a reason, and the way they worked out is great. So
this is a question that kind of summarizes some questions we're seeing in the chat, as well as some questions that people have emailed me about. How did you meet the advisors that you worked with at CU, both your primary advisor as well as any collaborations that you made with different advisors within CU and outside of CU?
So yeah, when I started at CU, I didn't know specifically who I wanted to work with. And I don't know if the department still does this, but in the first few months of the first semester, you had to go around, and if you didn't have an advisor, you had to go around and kind of talk to a certain number of potential advisors and understand their research. So I had done that, in the first few months, which was really helpful. And so I ended up meeting my advisor, Christoph Keplinger. Then also, I met other advisors through TAing their classes, through collaborations that our research group did with other advisors, whether that was in ME or other departments.
I personally applied to CU mechanical engineering with the intent of working with my advisor. So that's how, and I was fortunate enough he had an opening in the lab, and I was able to join his group.
Rosa, Adrian, do you have any comments?
I met my advisor at the Gears recruitment event, which if you're not able to attend, I think that it's very easy to reach out to professors. Professors, if they're recruiting, are happy to talk to new students. And so if you're interested in a particular, if you're interested in CU Boulder in general, I'd recommend going through the website, looking at all the advisors, and reaching out, start having conversations. And that way, you can figure out who you might want to work with early, if that's kind of your goal. And then I was able, because I determined advisor, I was able to start a bit early. So I started in the summer beforehand. And I'd say that was extremely helpful because I was able to sort of get my feet wet in the lab. I had never worked in a biology lab before, so I had a lot to learn. And then that allowed me to sort of get a head start. So I sort of knew what I was doing, and then I could focus on classes when the semester started, and start meeting new people and everything. So I'd recommend doing things earlier if you can.
Nothing to add for me, Bonnie.
Okay, perfect. So we have 7 minutes, maybe like 1 or 2 more questions. What do you all recommend? What would you recommend to new students or prospective students as first steps to take as a new PhD student?
I'll quickly come on this one. I think to breathe. I think Adrian mentioned it earlier. It is a lot. Just breathe. Be very gracious to yourself.
I would add to that saying that your graduate student cohort or the people around you are extremely important through your graduate career. So first couple of weeks, first month or so, like just reach out to whoever is in your department, who is in the same boat as you, and like just make long-lasting connections because they'll be helpful throughout your, not just graduate career, but throughout your life.
Yeah, I'd second that, Omkar. I think like having a network, like a support network around you of friends who you can talk through problems with, do problem sets with, is really important. So take the time. You don't have to work all the time. It's really, like they say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you will get tired and burnt out if you start sprinting your first year and don't stop. So if you can take breaks and get to know your cohort, and I really recommend getting to know all your cohort, having sort of had the opportunity to mentor different cohorts throughout the years at CU Boulder, I found that people were like, that some cohorts formed really strong communities all together, and some kind of found communities throughout their different cohorts. But you can start like I am sports things or try to do things together, because I think it really is kind of great and supportive when you can get the whole, like your whole sort of class together, if that's possible. I feel like they're growing these days, but it's still a very good opportunity.
Eric, any final thoughts?
No, I don't have anything to add to that. I think, yeah, it would just be reiterating what everybody else has already said. Yeah.
I feel like that was a good closing question, but I think this is also a good question to end off on. Can you highlight any specific projects or experiences that were pivotal in your career progression or just generally your time at CU Boulder? It doesn't have to be research related. It can also be like K through 12 or TAing or yeah, anything pivotal at CU Boulder.
I would say at CU, I got the opportunity to explore a lot of life outside of school. Like I learned how to climb at CU. I learned how to ski at CU. Those were I had a lot of aha moments in my work during a lot of extracurricular activities. So I would say not one highlight like pivotal moment, but a bunch of small pivotal moments combined.
I have to agree with Omkar. I think I came to CU with a very sort of toxic work-life balance. And I really, if I had continued in that track, I don't know where my mental health would be. And so I think learning how to take breaks and having a more of a balance was a really sort of pivotal experience that I had in my PhD that has influenced how I approach my work in the future.
I agree with both of what they shared.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe one thing that stands out, specific experience for me that stands out was basically when we started our company, and we did like a pitch competition, and I ended up pitching. And so one thing about me, which maybe, as engineers, you all can relate to, public speaking was not my thing. I was really nervous. Like, I never really enjoyed it or did well with public speaking early on in undergraduate and early part of my career. And that was like one skill that I learned, really developed, one of the soft skills that I really developed during the PhD, because you have a lot of presentations. And I think that is one of the most valuable skills that I've learned. And so doing this pitch competition that we ended up getting, second place, and went to like this finals at the Boulder Theater with a crowd of like 300 people. And that's something that 5 or 10 years prior, I don't think I would have like imagined I could do. So I think when you do a PhD, you're going to kind of, I guess, you need to take time to enjoy life and have a good work-life balance. But I think also you need to take the opportunity to challenge yourself, to push yourself, to kind of make kind of a step to the next level, to kind of like rise to the occasion. And whether it's some other challenge for you, like maybe it's not public speaking, maybe it's something else. But for me, that was sort of like something that was like, oh man, I never thought I'd do that. And it's sort of outside of the research, but I mean, there's many opportunities like that throughout your PhD, and definitely recommend kind of like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and taking chances.
Definitely agree with Eric. I feel like I found my voice during the PhD program. Like, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to learn how to work with multiple different people. You have to present your own work. Kind of have to like sell the things that you've been working on for 5 years to large groups of people who don't know what you're talking about. And so, yeah, I think that was great experience and useful skill to learn during grad school. But we are at time. Any other questions that people might have, feel free to email. Vera put her email in the chat earlier on. I'll also add my email. If I remember it, 1360@colorado.edu. Feel free to email us, even questions for the panelists, and we can get in touch with them and get your questions answered if it's specific to one of them. But good luck with the rest of your applications for those who haven't submitted yet and hearing back from the university. Thank you to our panelists for spending time during your days to come and speak with us and prospective students. Yeah, thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Vera, this should be recorded and put on the website, correct?
Yes, this will be recorded. In fact, I'll go ahead and stop.